Wayne comes to us, I should say, really from an educator activist lens. He poses questions to us about what it is that we can actually do differently. Now, he's a peer of mine, at least, born in 1972. He's straight, Chinese, white American. He's a husband, a father. He earned his PhD just north of us, University of Wisconsin-Madison, in curriculum and instruction. And currently he's a professor at the University of Washington, and he's the editor of Rethinking Schools. And his educational philosophy really is rooted in, one, this idea of discursive control theory, that ultimately society can control the sort of conversations and discourse that we have. And that level of control happens in schools as well. He argues that high stakes tests actually is one of these tools that creates a form of control on various identities and establishes legitimate or illegitimate classroom discourse, because what it is that we test is what it is that drives much of our curriculum. So what he also notices really is that these districts with high concentrations of low income and non-white students are using these tests even more so than their high income whiter counterparts. And that creates a more restrictive, less enriching educational environment for the very student that high stakes standardized tests are supposed to actually help. So more high stakes testing pressure at these students, at these schools that have more BIPOC populations. So this discursive control, if we really apply Freire's praxis, we recognize also that at a more macro level, that the threat of discipline, punishment, it actually does not bring about individual and systemic changes that will raise test scores and increase achievement. So what we really should be doing is recognizing the importance of the home cultures and identities of the students that are in front of us, so that our teaching can be more effective, more culturally relevant, less alienating. So the opposite of increasing focus on high stakes tests, and instead acknowledge the home cultures and identities of the students who are in front of us. Sorry about the font here. It looked fine before. Now, obviously, we're having issues with it. But what we should be doing is naming the cultures, naming the experiences of all our students in the curriculum in order to meet them exactly where they are. So he recognizes that there's this discursive control, and as a response to this, he really encourages us to have a multicultural curriculum, which more or less is spoken to up above with this application. But he goes on to really utilize some critical race theory concepts to say that we should be using this multicultural curriculum to interrogate racial positioning that happens in this country. And all the while recognizing that the individuals who are in front of us are just that. They're individuals. We want to humanize this experience. They're not just objects. So he also recognizes that multicultural education, it's really about incorporating the lived experiences of multiple identities, not just Eurocentric identities, and address discrimination, normalizing multiple perspectives, and providing a window and a mirror for our students. He would say that sometimes multiculturalism is not enough. This is where that educator activist really comes into play, because he recognizes that violence is actually being visited on our communities. The threats are themselves forms of violence. And our kids, well, they're rightfully anxious and fearful. So when our students are living in fear, they're traumatized by the impact of police violence, ICE raids, hate speech, and racist attacks, then we really ought to take it another level, he says. We really need to be clear about where our solidarities lie and develop a plan regarding what office staff must do if ICE arrives. Create space at school to hold community conversations regarding these very issues, and even consider people who will form a blockade or provide witness to events. Might need to go so far as establishing a system of temporary custody. Now, going full circle back to that biography slide, he identifies as Asian, and he recognizes that that doesn't make me a model minority. There are over 50 ways to officially qualify as Asian in this country. And it's a marketing scheme. And what it does, the scheme, it masks diversity. People all the way from Turkey to Japan can identify as Asian. And so it masks these many divisions that are within. It also masks the ethnic inequality, these different cultures. And it, of course, masks economic circumstance. So in 1965, for example, Asians were allowed to immigrate to this country as long as they were willing to invest $40,000 into a business. So that tells you a lot about the sort of Asians who we are allowing into this country. And when we actually consider Asians from different parts of Asia, we recognize that many from Southern Asia actually perform far worse than white counterparts. So those individuals from Laos, for example, Burma, perform far worse, Philippines. And so what ends up happening is that it masks racism, because arguably what the case is here is that, hey, these Asians are able to engage in our country and really perform well. How come Blacks can't, and how come the Latino community can't? So he is not just an educator, but Wayne Au is also very much an activist. Thank you.